Get her out of here! She's just the cleaning lady's daughter! The words cut through the sterile hospital hallway like a knife. Men in expensive suits sneered, eyes full of disgust, as the girl stood frozen, holding her mother's mop bucket. She was invisible to them, unworthy, unwanted. But what they didn't know was this. In less than 10 minutes, when every doctor had failed, the life of the mafia boss's only son would rest in her hands. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were her? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. Her name was Alana. To most people, she was simply the quiet daughter of a woman who scrubbed floors and wiped windows for a living. Every evening after school, Alana would slip into the hospital where her mother worked, helping her carry buckets and stack cleaning supplies. The doctors walked past her without a glance. Nurses barely noticed she existed. To them, she was just part of the background, a shadow in the corners of gleaming corridors. But Alana wasn't ordinary. While her mother polished the floors, Alana devoured the medical textbooks she found abandoned in break rooms. Page after page, word after word, she taught herself about the human body, about diseases, about the power of science to heal. She had no formal education in medicine, no access to fancy tutors or labs, but her hunger to learn made her sharper than most of the interns who passed through those halls. Still, no one believed in her. They saw her skin, her clothes, her mother's uniform, and decided she wasn't worth their attention. And Alana never argued. She kept her head down, listening, memorizing, storing knowledge in silence. What no one realized was that the girl everyone dismissed was carrying inside her a mind capable of brilliance. That night, the hospital was different. Black cars lined the entrance. Men in sharp suits and heavy watches stormed through the glass doors. Fear rippled through the staff as word spread. The mafia boss's only son had collapsed, and no one knew why. The boy's condition was deteriorating fast. Doctors ran test after test, but every answer came up empty. Hours ticked by, and the panic grew heavier with each breath. Alana watched from the shadows, her mother tugging her arm to keep her out of sight. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to speak. But as she listened to the chaos, something inside her stirred. She recognized the symptoms. She had read about this rare condition in one of those forgotten textbooks, and in that moment a terrifying thought gripped her. She might know the cure the doctors had missed, but could she dare to speak up? Could she risk the humiliation, the rejection, the anger of powerful men who saw her as nothing more than a cleaning lady's daughter? If you were in her place, knowing you might save a life but also knowing no one would believe you, what would you do? The hospital was drowning in tension. The mafia boss paced the waiting room like a caged animal, his face carved with rage and fear. His son lay in a sterile bed, pale and trembling, each breath weaker than the last. Around him, specialists whispered, argued, and scribbled on charts, but nothing worked. One injection after another, one machine after another. Still, the boy's condition worsened. Alana stood in the corner clutching her mother's sleeve, her heart pounding. She could see it clearly, the symptoms, the signs others overlooked. The boy's rapid decline wasn't from an infection. It wasn't from trauma. It was a rare reaction, one she had read about late at night, under a dim lamp while her mother slept. The cure wasn't complicated, not if you knew what you were looking for. But how could she say that aloud in a room full of men who dismissed her as nothing? Her chest ached as she watched the boy's lips turn blue. Doctors surrounded the bed, but their eyes betrayed panic. "He's slipping," one muttered. Another shook his head in defeat. The mafia boss slammed his fist against the wall, roaring that if they failed, their lives would pay the price. The entire ward seemed to tremble with his fury. Alana couldn't stay silent. Her mind screamed the answer, louder than the fear twisting her stomach. She stepped forward, her small voice breaking the air. Heads turned instantly. Sharp glares, raised eyebrows, mocking smirks. "What is she doing here?" One doctor spat. "Out. This is no place for children, especially not her." The sting of humiliation burned her skin, but she didn't move. She repeated the symptoms, the name of the condition, the antidote that could reverse it. Laughter filled the room. Laughter at her accent, at her ragged shoes, at her audacity. "The cleaning lady's daughter thinks she's smarter than us. someone sneered. Her mother pulled at her arm desperately, whispering for her to stop before things got worse. But Alana's eyes stayed on the boy, his fragile chest struggling against time itself. The Mafia boss silenced the room with a single bark. His gaze locked on Alana, dark and piercing. "What did you say?" he demanded. The doctors protested, shaking their heads, urging him not to listen. But something in the girl's unwavering stare gave him pause. For a moment, silence hung thick in the air. Then came his brutal order. "If she's wrong, she dies." Alana's knees nearly buckled, but her voice didn't waver. She repeated the treatment with certainty, her words crisp, her hands trembling only when hidden in her pockets. The Mafia boss pointed to the doctors. "Do it, now!" They hesitated, horrified at the thought of following a child's advice. But the boss's glare left no room for refusal. Every second dragged like an eternity. The antidote was prepared. The injection delivered. The room froze, waiting. The boy's chest barely rose, his heartbeat faint. Alana held her breath, her mother sobbing quietly behind her. This was it. Her mind against the pride of men who had studied for years. Her knowledge against the cruelty of a world that thought she was nothing. And in that moment, as the boy's body convulsed once, then stilled, the entire room leaned in, bracing for the truth that would either vindicate her or end her. The monitors screamed, their alarms piercing through the silence. The boy's body went limp, and for a breathless instant, it seemed as if everything had failed. Gasps echoed. One doctor muttered that this was madness, that the girl's foolishness had cost the boy his life. Alana's chest clenched so tightly she thought she might collapse. Her mother covered her face, already preparing for the worst. Then, one faint beep, another, the flat line broke. The boy's chest rose, shallow but steady, color slowly crawling back into his face. The monitors steadied, the panic softened, and eyes that once mocked her now stared in disbelief. The impossible had happened. The son of the Mafia boss was alive because of her. But instead of gratitude, silence filled the room. Cold, heavy, suspicious silence. The doctors couldn't accept that they had been outsmarted by a girl who scrubbed floors. One of them snapped, calling it luck, insisting that she was reckless, that she couldn't possibly understand what she had done. Another demanded she be thrown out immediately. The Mafia boss raised his hand, silencing everyone. He walked toward Alana slowly, each step deliberate, his face unreadable. She braced herself for his wrath, every nerve screaming with fear. If he thought she had disrespected him, it could mean the end for her and her mother. The room held its breath as he stopped inches from her, his shadow swallowing her small frame. Would he punish her for daring to speak? Or would he finally see the truth that no one else was willing to admit? What do you think he's about to do? Reward her or make her pay? Drop your prediction in the comments before we reveal what happened next. The Mafia boss stood in silence, his gaze locked on Alana. The room was still, as if the walls themselves were waiting for his judgment. Then, to everyone's shock, he placed his heavy hand on her shoulder. "You saved my son," he said, his voice low but firm. Not a thank you, not a smile. Just an acknowledgement that shook the doctors to their core. The men in white coats who had dismissed her were forced to watch as their failure stood exposed. Their degrees, their titles, their arrogance, none of it had mattered. A girl they had laughed at had done what 100 doctors could not. Some turned away in shame, others clung to excuses, but none could erase what had just happened. Alana's mother wept quietly, holding her daughter's hand as though she might lose her at any moment. But Alana stood tall, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and pride. For the first time, someone powerful had seen her not as a cleaning lady's daughter, but as something greater. Word of the incident spread beyond the hospital. Whispers turned into stories. Some dismissed it as rumor. Others couldn't stop talking about the girl who had defied prejudice and saved the life no one else could. And though the Mafia boss never said more than those few words, his silence gave her protection no one dared challenge. But the real impact wasn't in the boss's approval. It was in what Alana carried forward. She had proven to herself and to the world that brilliance has no uniform, no skin color, no social class. That night, she became a symbol of what happens when courage breaks through fear. Yet the bitter truth remained. She should never have had to fight so hard to be heard in the first place. How many lives are lost every day because voices like hers are silenced by prejudice? How many geniuses are overlooked because of the color of their skin or the job their parents do? This isn't just Alana's story, it's a reminder that talent, wisdom, and greatness can rise from anywhere. The real question is, will we listen the next time someone we underestimate dares to speak? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.